Hello my dear students, good morning to all of you. Today I am going to start with the module 2, that is generation of a high voltages and currents. Okay, before starting this module 2, just we'll have a glance about first module. Okay, basically in the first module what we have studied, so like the various electrical phenomena like conduction phenomena, and one more is the breakdown phenomena. Is it right? So these are the two electrical phenomena we have studied by considering the different dielectric mediums like gaseous medium, solid medium, and one more is the liquid insulating medium. Is it right? By considering the different dielectric mediums, we have studied about the various electrical phenomena like conduction phenomena, and one more is the breakdown phenomena. Is it right? So in that first module, very important things are the breakdown mechanism can be well explained with the help of two theories. Which are those two theories? One is Townsend's criterion for breakdown, and one more is the streamer theory also we have studied. Is it right? So these are the things what we have covered in the first module. Okay, in today's session, let's move on to module 2. In module 2, basically we are concentrating more on the generation of these high voltages as well as the currents. Okay, here, so very important thing is to understand what is the necessity of generating these high voltages as well as the currents. The first very important thing we need to understand here, generation of these high voltages as well as the currents, it is very much required for the insulation testing of various electrical power apparatuses. Keep it in mind. For testing, which testing? Insulation testing of a voltage, insulation testing of the power apparatuses. For that purpose, we are going to generate the high voltages as well as the currents by making use of the different techniques or using the different circuits. Okay, basically completely in the module 2, we are going to study about the how the generation process of high voltages and currents. The techniques completely we are going to study in this module 2. Okay, let's start with the module 2. So here in your syllabus, the module 2 is completely covers the generation of different voltages. We have three different voltages, right? DC voltage, AC voltage, and one more is the impulse voltage. Keep it in mind. So the generation, how the generation it is going to be done. So we'll study in the module 2. So the first one is generation of a high DC voltages, that is direct current voltage. Second one is generation of high alternating current voltage. And the third is generation of high impulse voltage. And the fourth one is generation of high impulse current. Keep it in mind. After this generation, how the tripping as well as the controlling of impulse generator it has done, also we'll study in the module 2. So these are the 5 important bits what we are going to cover in the module 2. Okay, let me start with some introductory about the module 2. See here, in introduction bit, first thing here, the high voltages like DC voltage, AC voltage, and one more is the impulse voltage. First, try to understand what is the meaning of these voltages. Keep it in mind. So DC in the sense that direct current, AC is alternating current, and this is impulse. This impulse also going to be called it as a transient. Keep it in mind. So this DC voltage, direct current voltage. So D in the name only it indicates that direct in the sense that the flow of electrical charges in only one direction. Keep it in mind. Next comes to AC. AC in the sense that alternating. Alternating means what? The flow of electrical charges that periodically reverses its direction. Getting my point? So next comes to impulse voltage. Impulse or transient voltage. Here, this is also a unidirectional voltage, but it rapidly rises to peak value or it may drops down to zero very much rapidly. So what is the meaning of this one? Means within a shorter span of a time, within a shorter duration, the voltage may reaches to its peak value or it may drops down to zero value. Getting my point? So that voltage, it is going to be called it as a impulse voltage. So these are the different high voltages which are required in a several applications. In which fields it is going to be used? Means in the fields of electrical engineering as well as the applied physics. Okay. So let me give us some examples where we are going to use these high voltage applications. Okay. First you need to keep it in a mind. High generation of a high DC voltage, generation of a high AC voltage, and generation of a impulse voltages. This model completely model 2 is generation process of these three different voltages. Okay. Where we are going to use these voltages means the first examples like electron microscopes as well as the medical applications like X-ray units. These kinds of equipments which requires high DC voltage. Which voltage? DC voltage of order how much? 100 kV and more also. This much amount of voltage it is required to operate the instruments like which are those electron microscopes as well as the X-ray units. Okay. And these high DC voltages of order how much? Several kilovolts. Nothing but what? Kilo in the sense that 1000 volts it is. And even megavolts also we are going to be used for applications like electrostatic precipitators and one more in case of the particle accelerators in nuclear physics. So in these kinds of applications we require high DC voltages of order how much? Several kilovolts or even megavolts also. These are the two examples for the high DC voltages. Next comes to high AC voltage. High AC voltage where we are going to prefer means that is of order high voltages of 1 million volts or even more. So this much amount of AC voltage it is mainly required for the carrying out of insulation testing of the power apparatuses. Getting my point? Insulation testing of power apparatuses in the sense that like a power apparatus means which are those equipments like what it is testing of the surge diverters or short circuit testing of the switchgear or you can say that for testing the various types of power system equipments like a transformer, circuit breakers, surge arresters. So these are all these things. Or else insulation testing of the cables or insulation testing of the capacitors. So this high AC voltages are specially required for testing the power apparatuses. Getting my point? Which are rated for a transmission voltages of how much? That is 400 kV system and even above also. Getting my point? So the thing is that the main concern of these high voltages is for the insulation testing. Getting the point what I am going to tell? The main intention behind the generation of a high voltages as well as the currents is to carry out the insulation testing of the various components which are used in the power systems. Getting my point? So various equipments like transformer testing, circuit breaker testing, surge arrestor testing. Getting my point? Various switchgear equipments. So that is for those equipments insulation testing. It is very important. That is why we are going to generate the high voltages as well as the currents. Okay, next we'll move on to what are the different forms of high voltages. We'll list out one by one. Okay, the first one is high DC voltage and the second one is high AC voltage. This high AC voltage only it is categorized at a power frequency and one more at the higher frequency. Very important thing is here. High AC voltage of a power frequency means how much? That is 50 to 60 Hertz. That is Indian standard frequency. Usually what? That usually describes the operation of electrical equipments at a Indian standard frequency that is of a 50 to 60 Hertz it is. So that's the third one is high AC voltages of a higher frequency. In the communication transmission networks, those high frequency, it is going to be preferred in the range from 30 to 300 megahertz. So in such cases, high voltage generation, high AC voltage generation, it has done with the help of a different techniques. Also we'll study in the further sessions. Okay. So these, getting my point, different forms of the high voltage. The first one is high DC, direct current voltage, and the second one is high alternating current voltages, which is considered at a power frequency and which is also considered the higher frequency. These are the two. Next comes to the high transient or the impulse voltage. So as I already said that impulse voltage is nothing but the within a shorter span of a time, the voltage, it may reaches to peak value or it may drops down to 0. Is it right? So these high transient or the impulse voltages are considered for a shorter duration and one more at the longer duration. If you consider for the shorter duration, example is which one? That is lightning over voltages. When we consider for the longer duration, the example is switching surges. Keep it in mind. So these are the different forms of a high voltages. So next we'll study about the how the generation of these forms of a voltage, it is going to be done with the help of a different techniques. What are those techniques? We'll list out one by one. Okay. Okay, let's move on. See here. So basically this is very important. This will give the clear picture about what are the contents we are going to study in the module 2. Okay. This is generation of a high voltages as well as the high currents. Okay. First we'll take a bit of high voltages. Okay. Generation of high voltages. So as I already said that different forms of the voltages, which are those high DC voltage, and one more is high AC voltage at a power frequency and one more at the higher frequency. And the fourth one is high transient or the impulse voltage for a shorter duration and one more at the longer duration. For all these voltages as well as for all these voltages, what are the techniques or what are the methods which we are going to use? We'll list it out. Okay. The first one is high DC voltage. So high direct current voltage. So this voltage generation, it has done using these circuits called as a half wave as well as the full wave rectifier circuit. This is the one of the technique. Second one is voltage doubler circuit and the third is voltage multiplier circuit. This is very important from exam point of view also. This voltage multiplier circuit, it is also going to be called it as a Cockcroft-Walton voltage multiplier circuit. Keep it in mind. So next fourth one is Van de Graaff generator. So this is same. This is also going to be called it as an electrostatic generator. This generator is going to be works on the principle of electrostatics. Okay. So these are the four techniques. This fifth one is nothing but Van de Graaff generator only, electrostatic generator. So these are the techniques or the methods which will be used for generating which voltage? High DC voltage. Keep it in mind. Okay. Next comes to high AC voltage. This high AC voltage generation, it is going to be considered at the power frequency range and one more at the higher frequency range. Okay. The first one is generation of high AC voltage of a power frequency that it has done by using two techniques, which are those one using the cascaded transformer and one more use the resonant transformer. These are two important things. Okay. Next comes to high AC voltage generation of a higher frequency that is done with the help of a Tesla coil. Don't get confused with the techniques. Okay. Next comes to high transient or the impulse voltage. I said that this transient or the impulse voltage means impulse in the sense that this voltage, it is also unidirectional voltage, but it rapidly rises to peak value or it may drops down to 0 value. So this voltage, it is considered for the two durations. One, it is for a shorter duration and one more is at the longer duration. Example for a shorter duration is lightning over voltage. Example for a longer duration is switching surges. Okay. So, in your syllabus, they have mentioned only the generation of this high impulse or a transient voltages for a shorter duration. That has been done using a circuit called as a Marx circuit, or it is also going to be called it as a multi-stage impulse generator. So, this is very important bit of this module. Okay. Next comes to, so these are all about the high voltage generation. Next, one more bit is remaining in this module 2. What is that one? Generation of a high currents. Okay. In your syllabus, they have mentioned about only impulse current generation. So, impulse current generation, how it has done means by using a generator called as a impulse current generator. And after this, we'll study about the tripping, how the tripping as well as the controlling of this impulse generator also we'll study in the module 2. So this is all about, this will give the clear picture about the module 2. Actually, if somebody has asked means in the module 2, what are the things we are going to study means basically the generation of a high voltage as well as the currents. How? In the sense that, so what purpose we have to generate in the sense that mainly the thing is that insulation testing of the, for the purpose of insulation testing of the various electrical power apparatuses. For that purpose, we need to generate the high voltage as well as the currents. Okay. How these voltages are generated means by using all these techniques. Okay. In next session, what we will do, we'll start with the high DC voltage generation using these rectifier circuits. In next session, we'll start. Okay. I hope this is clear to all of you. Okay. Thank you.